Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Renew Recovery here at First Baptist Sweetwater. We meet here every Monday at 6 for a good feast. Right now, I want to give the ladies in the kitchen and the gentlemen in the kitchen a round of applause for all their efforts they do. And yes, we meet here every Monday. And thanks everyone for joining us tonight online and those here. We are a faith-based program. Welcome just as you are. We hope you hear something that you need to hear. And tonight, we have one of our own here coming up to share tonight. I want everyone to welcome Mr. Hopkins up to come, and he's going to share about a personal perspective of a relapse. Welcome him up.
All right. You know, I was feeling really good sitting in the chair over there, and now that I'm standing right here, I'm a little nervous. It's the microphone, yeah. All right. So my name's Hopkins Lambert. I am a recovering alcoholic.
Hey, Hopkins.
But more importantly, I'm a born-again Christian.
That's right.
I think I've kind of racked my brain a little bit about what to talk about and how to talk about it, I guess. But I think the best thing to do is just kind of start with my story a little bit and then just go through my life, I guess. I don't know. And we'll see if we get anything out of it. So I was born in, we won't start that far back. I've lived here in Englewood, Tennessee my whole life. I had an extremely normal childhood. I've really thought back looking for something, but I cannot think of one real traumatic thing that's ever happened to me in my life, that affected me in any kind of substantial way. I had a very loving family. My mother and father did everything they possibly could for us as kids. Got two older brothers. My eldest brother has had some struggles in the past. The middle brother's a perfect angel, of course, but we generally had a pretty normal youth growing up. We weren't poor, we weren't rich, but we weren't poor. We went to church all the time, every Sunday. We went to Fairview Baptist Church in Athens, Tennessee, and that's a pretty strict church too. And so I just had a really normal childhood, and I was a normal kid. And even throughout high school and stuff, I didn't go to like parties or anything like that. I was a volunteer fireman for a long time, for 5 years or so, at the end of high school and beyond for a couple years. So that kind of kept me out of trouble, I think. And I was fortunate for that. But when I turned 19 years old, I moved out of my parents' house. And, I was free of the nest, right? I could do whatever I wanted. I had my own place. I paid my own bills. And I had some friends who were over 21. So, we would do what normal 19 and 20-year-old kids would do when they first move out of their house. Every couple weekends a year, we'd get somebody, whoever could go buy some beer, and we'd have some drinks and whatever. It was just pretty typical, I think. Not condoning, just saying. But as I continued to live alone, and in that way, I guess not that I really wasn't doing anything other than just having a couple drinks here and there. But I stopped going to church. That was the big thing, because I didn't have my parents to wake me up on Sunday and take me to church. And it was just an extra day off. And I think it's in that time frame of my life where I was distant from God, not because of an event, but my own choices. And I think I knew that subconsciously. I didn't ever consider that at the time, but that was kind of revealed to me after some deep soul searching over the last year or so. So that is something that I think kind of spun me in the direction that I went, is that I got out of church and I got away from God. And that had a real effect. And, I maintained a pretty normal lifestyle for till I was about, 23 and 24, maybe not that, maybe 22, 23, something like that. Anyway, we started, I started hanging out with some people, and we started this thing we called Typical Friday Nights. And I don't know why, but it was just where we came over to my house every Friday night and we got drunk. And then Typical Friday Nights turned into Typical Weekends. And then, those guys kind of just went on with their life, but I couldn't shake it, man. I had to keep drinking. I don't know if it was, I don't think at that point I was, physically or chemically addicted to alcohol, but I think that I was emotionally and maybe mentally addicted to alcohol, and I wanted something to numb the feelings, right? And like I said, I didn't really have very many traumatic experiences to numb, but what I did have was a lacking relationship with my Heavenly Father. And as I said, subconsciously, I think I knew that because I wanted to numb something, and I didn't really know at the time what that was, but I know now. And anyway, the years proceed, the drinking continues. I met my wife in 2018. I met her before that, but we started dating in 2018, and at that point, I had quit drinking. And I went sober for, probably 6 months or so, and then we would go out to the bar and have a drink here and there and blah, 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 but that was pretty much it. And then I started sneaking in alcohol. Now, I wasn't hiding the alcohol from my wife, but I wasn't being forthright with it. So I was technically hiding from her. Anyway, I maintained that for a while, and then there was a point in time where she and another one of my friends kind of confronted me. I don't think they understood the depth of the issue, but they had a concern for whatever reason, and I said, yeah, y'all are probably right. I don't think I have a problem. I think I quit. That wasn't true. So I said, yeah, I'll quit. And then I told her that I would, and I didn't. And I just continued to drink. And the drinking got more severe. The lies got deeper and bigger, and the dependency got stronger. And it went from, drinking beer to hiding liquor in the truck type of thing. So it was a pretty sharp fall off the cliff, And I maintained that for about 3 years, and I would have been drunk every day, which is pretty embarrassing to say, but that's just the reality of it. That's what I did, and I don't even want to think about the amount of money that I spent on that, so we won't. But anyway, there was a few points throughout there where I had the conversation with myself, not with God, that you gotta figure out how to quit. You gotta stop. And I would go a day, and then I would be like, man, that's all right. I'm fine. See, I quit for a day. And that happened a couple times. And then on February the 11th of 2025, I was drunk in my bed. My wife was asleep next to me. And I had the most intense feeling, the indescribable, really. It felt like my insides were on fire, and I just couldn't get rid of the feeling that if you drink one more time, you're going to die. That's how I felt. It was, if you don't come clean with this issue that you have right away, you're going to die. I had this impending doom feeling. And it scared the life out of me, man. It really scared me to death. But I ignored it. And I was finally able to fall asleep, and I went to work all day the next day feeling the same way. Just this pendulum of doom swinging towards me, and I just couldn't shake that feeling. And I tried everything short of getting drunk. I tried everything short of getting drunk. So that day, I just couldn't take it anymore. It was bubbling over. I was shaky. I was emotional. So I left work at 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I went home and I confessed everything to my wife, which was very hard. And it was hard because I had made up these own roadblocks in my mind. And I remember thinking prior to this that I would either figure out how to get out from under this addiction by myself without telling anybody, or I would just die with it. I thought that, which is pretty insane. But that's where my mind was. I was so certain that nobody would ever know about it, and I would keep it a secret until the Lord put his hand on me and forced me to tell. Because that feeling that I had was not some, personal revelation or anything like that. That was an extremely strong conviction from God. And man, he put the pressure on me. I've never felt anything like that again. I hope I never do. It was horrible. It was truly a horrible feeling. I felt so miserable. But the other side of that coin, the other reason I didn't want anybody, especially my wife, to know is because I knew that she would leave me. And rightfully so, I think. She would have had a good excuse to say, all right, well, you're crazy. I'm out of here. And that was really scary. And I truly thought that if I tell my wife the truth, then she's gone. And at the time, she was pregnant, and we had a young child. We still have that young child. I shouldn't have worded it that way. Our child was very young, and she was pregnant. So it was a really bad time to bring that up or tell her, but the Lord said it was time.
That's right.
And the way that she responded to what I said was the polar opposite of what I expected. I thought there was going to be a big fight. I had prepared for that. I went through it in my mind. But what she said was, I love you, and we're going to get through this together. And that was a huge relief. That was the bigger part of my fear of telling her. And so she met me with so much grace, and that is the other part that the Lord was working on. The Lord was working on me, saying, you got to come clean, and he was working on her, saying, you got to meet him in the middle, And it's amazing how he does work that way. He works behind the scenes, 99% of the time, and that is an example of that. So that night, that was a Monday. That night, I came here for the first time. It's my first time ever coming to a place like this. I was really nervous because, and I still feel this way sometimes, but, I don't want to share all my stuff with everybody. I don't want everybody to know that I've got a problem, but I do. And I think, I think there's an appropriate time to share that. I guess I'm just so concerned about what other people think of me, that I sometimes let that kind of affect my judgment, cloud my judgment on how to approach a situation. And I think the Lord put it pretty heavily on my heart that now's not the time to be concerned about how people feel. What you need to do is go figure out how to fix yourself. So I came and I cried, and Roger gave a lesson that night about the rat in the jar of oats. I'm sure you guys have heard that one before. And I was like, wow, I'm the rat, And I was like, how appropriate could it have been? So anyway, I cried like a little baby back there in the back, and I was too emotional to stay for small group that night, but it was a nice icebreaker. It was good to feel accepted, and that's truly how I felt. I didn't feel any judgment. That was one of the things that I was concerned about, is because I know some of you. I knew some of you before I started coming here, and surprise, I'm an alcoholic. It's kind of, I don't know. I just felt like, you feel like there could possibly be some judgment, but there wasn't. There wasn't any, and that was truly an amazing experience for me to realize that I had a safe place to come, and that helped a ton. So moving on, I started my sobriety journey. I was real scared at first because I hadn't been sober in years, so I didn't really know what to expect, and it went all right. Things went well. I felt good, and I stayed sober for, I don't know, a couple months. And I remember when I first told everybody, my mom and dad and everybody, and I told them about this whole situation, but I paired that with which I guess I should have talked about this first, but during this time of gaining sobriety, or after telling my wife, the next 10 to 15 days was a hyper emotional time for me. God's Spirit was running through me like crazy, and man, I would hear a song and cry like it was nuts. And I think God works that way sometimes. When He convicts you, you get this adrenaline rush from His Spirit, right? Yes. Where you're just so amped up about everything and you're super hyped. And then, your adrenaline wears off after time. And that's what happened. He gets you amped up. He floods you with His Spirit. And He says, I am God. I'm here to help you. Look how I've touched your life. Now, I'm passing the baton to you. Now you follow me. And I took that baton and I just kind of stood there in the road like a moron and didn't do anything. And, not very long after that is when I crawled back up on the throne of my life. I told my mother that my biggest fear was not that I wasn't saved, or not that I haven't been born again. It was that I'm going to take back over and be in charge again. And that scared me to death. It still scares me. I'm getting a little emotional. And I knew that would happen. I knew that would happen because I know me, and I know human nature, and I know I've lived my whole life that way. So I know how it is. And I just knew that when God loosened His grip on me, that I was going to say, okay, I'm good, I'm clean. I was sober for 3 months. Look, I'm good, I can do it. And that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. I got sober, and I stayed sober for long enough to prove to myself that I could do it. And then I thought, see, there's nothing to that. I can do this again. I can just be a little more sneaky this time. I learned the errors and the ways that I got caught before, I can adjust. So I did. It started out real simple. I went and snuck a Four Loko from a gas station and drank it while I was mowing my yard, And then that just snowballed, and it went from a drink here, a drink there, to same liquor bottle under the seat every day. And it happened super fast. And it snowballed out of control. And my wife caught me multiple times being just over the top drunk and falling down in the house, just foolish, just so embarrassingly bad. And the last time she caught me was on August 30th of 2025. And she said, "This is your last chance. No more after this one." She said, if you do this again, you have to go live with your parents until you figure it out. And that was kind of a wake-up call. That was a very big wake-up call, if I'm being honest, because looking back through my addiction, I never lost anything. I never lost my job. I never lost my license or went to jail. I've never even been arrested. Nothing. I never had anything bad happen to me during that period, which is amazing. And I'm so thankful for the mercy and grace that God showed me in that time. But the stakes are much higher now than they would have been then. And I think that's what's really opened my eyes to the gravity of the situation, is that not only can I lose things that I care about, I can lose my children. That's a whole nother level of fear. That's one of my biggest fears, is something happening to my children. And if that happens at my own hand, it's even worse. So that really pushed me over the edge for sobriety. And also, I don't want to go live with my mom. No offense if my mom is watching. But I, that she did the right thing, I think. She really set a boundary. And in fact, that night she said, "And actually you have to stay at your mom's house now until you sober up, and then we can figure it out. We can have the conversation when you sober up tomorrow." And then I had to go grilled by my mother and father, which was rough. But we made it through, and I've been sober since August 30th of 2025. And so anyway, that's kind of my experience with relapsing. But I want to talk about some of the things that I've kind of gleaned from this, thanks to insight from the Lord. And it's the big thing that I struggle with now, and especially then. I'm fighting my demons on this now, but the big thing, and you're all guilty of it, whether you like it or not, is lying. Does anybody ever lie about anything? Man, I don't know why, but it's so easy for me to lie. It's so easy for me to lie about anything. And I just don't understand. I don't understand why I struggle with that. And I'll lie about things that don't even matter. Like nobody would have cared either way, but I'll still lie about it. And that's something that I've been really fighting. And I also think that was probably a big proponent as to why I might have relapsed. Because I was lying to myself, and I was lying to God. I do that a lot. That's something I really struggle with, man. And I like this forum where I can talk to you guys, because I feel like I can be a little bit more open about kind of deeper topics, because most of us have experienced something a little more harsh than your average guys, right? So this topic probably wouldn't be appropriate for your life group or your Sunday school class or whatever. So I enjoy being able to say these things, and when I say I struggle with lying to God, I truly mean that, because I prayed and asked God to change me, to make a change in me. And I don't think I really wanted that. I didn't really want that, So I don't know why, and God knows that, God knows that you're lying about it. And that's what it is, whether you're intentionally doing it or not. But sometimes I will pray for something, a change of heart, change of mind. But deep down, I know that I don't want that to change. Isn't that interesting, how we do that silly stuff? So I've been changing the way I pray a little bit to include that little part of me that does lie. And I think that's really important to do some soul searching and to be truly honest, even if it's hard, and even if you sound like a jerk or selfish or whatever. You are. I am. We all are. And I just think that we collectively could all do a little bit more soul searching and truth telling, if you will. So I think I sped through that one, Gabe. I'm sorry if I went too quick, but I think I've said all I need to say.
Good job. Another round of applause for him. That was really good. Good job, Hopkins. That was great, man. You spoke right there at the end, which is very key, is that vigorous honesty. That is so key. If you can't be honest with yourself, who can you be honest to? You ain't gonna be honest to God. You're gonna lie to yourself. That's how I was. I was that way myself, man. And just making that, today, it might sound crazy, but if you go to a fast food store and they give you back the change, my past life and my addiction, they give me 10 extra bucks back. I'll almost stick it in my pocket, say, oh, I got them. But now, no, I'm turning around, I'm giving it back to them. Just little things like that really sets the tone. That was very vulnerable of you, man. That was great. Thank you for sharing that. You hit on a lot of stuff, man. Especially, that's pretty much a relapse prevention type talk, man. But I want to thank you. Thanks everyone here. Thanks everyone online for coming. Like and share our page. Bring others. Come back. Like and share our page. Hope you got to hear all you can hear. And we want to give a shout out to Roger. Hope everything's good, Roger. You and the fam having fun up in Yellowstone. I'm jealous, but it's okay. I can see pictures. But we got a saying here at Renew, we love you, but God loves you so much more. Thank you, everybody.